My very first childhood playthrough of Pokémon Gold and Silver is still surprisingly fresh in my mind, even after all these years. And for all the right reasons as well. I just adore these games. But there's one memory in particular that still haunts me even to this day. Let me take you back to the summer of 2001 when Pokémon Gold and Silver had recently launched in Europe, and at a time when the world just generally felt like a much better place than it does right now. Over the past year or two, I'd become utterly obsessed with Pokémon. Proudly owning copies of Pokémon Red, Blue and Yellow, I had a special limited edition Pokémon themed Nintendo 64, which I think is exclusive to the UK and Australia. Not that I knew that at the time. And just about any piece of Pokémon merchandise I could get my poor mum to go and buy for me. Thanks, mum. But now, after all those hours put into Red, Blue and Yellow, it was time for a brand new generation of Pokémon games to arrive for the very first time. I decided to play Silver first as my first main playthrough. I think Lugia and Ho-Oh are both perfectly wonderful designs actually, and I tend to pick the version with the coolest looking box art, you know, the Pokemon that stands out to me. For some reason Lugia was just that little bit cooler, to me at least, so that grabbed my attention more. And soon enough, just like millions of other people around the world, I was setting off on a brand new Pokemon journey in a brand new region, and it was genuinely really exciting. I remember choosing Cyndaquil as my starter, as if it was yesterday, and those early moments in the game where you discover the concept of Pokemon eggs for the first time, where you experience the day-night cycle for the first time, and even stumbling across Kurt and his menagerie of unique Pokeballs that we'd never seen before. It was all kind of mind-blowing to me as an 8-year-old who, until now, thought he knew everything there was to know about Pokemon. Suddenly, there was so much more to discover, and suddenly everything was new again. Now, at that age, I take my Game Boy anywhere, and I mean anywhere. We had these cheap gold and silver shells that you could put over your console, and you better believe I went out in public with my shiny, sparkly silver Game Boy at every opportunity, because that's just how cool I was. And so onto this haunting memory. Now bear with me here, but my grandparents used to go to a dance club, and for some reason I was dragged along. I couldn't tell you why. And that meant I would often find myself in a room full of pensioners, casually chatting to them about Pokemon or dinosaurs, whichever came up first. And it was here at this dance club where the big bad memory occurred. So I'd been playing this game for weeks, and I was late game at this point. I'm thinking either Mount Silver or maybe Victory Road. I can't remember which. But look, this was 20 years ago, so I feel like I'm doing well just remembering any of this at all, to be honest. I'm gonna assume it was Mount Silver, and I was exploring each twist and turn of this cave, occasionally glancing up to watch the ballroom dancing happening. It was a weird time when suddenly a Graveler appeared on screen. Now, that alone, not a problem. Love Graveler, great. But this Graveler was weird. 8-year-old me didn't know why it was weird, but it was weird. I distinctly remember being confused and actually a little concerned. I spent some time angling my Game Boy under the sparkly disco ballroom lights, making sure that I definitely wasn't seeing things. But sure enough, I was concerned because this Graveler was a completely different colour. Now, I'm sure plenty of you probably know where this is going, but as a child, the concept of shiny Pokemon just wasn't something I was aware of at all. And that's fair enough really, because shiny Pokemon were only introduced in Gold and Silver, so this was the first time they'd been a thing, and it was definitely the first time that I'd ever seen one. I took a few long looks at this Graveler, convinced myself it must be a glitch of some sort, and I thought, well, what if this might ruin my save file, or Or what if it even breaks the cartridge? What if it makes the game completely unplayable? And so, after a few seconds of panicking, I killed the thing as fast as I could. Eventually, and again, I don't know exactly when this was, but eventually I obviously learned all about what shiny Pokemon were. These very real, very safe for your cartridge, and extremely rare variants of the Pokemon that we all know and love. For collectors and anyone really who has any interest in shiny Pokemon or collecting rare things, completing games to the fullest extent, accidentally losing a shiny Pokemon by mistake or through some kind of bad decision is painful at the best of times. For me, I suddenly had this crushing realization that not only had I missed the chance to grab a shiny, but that I had purposefully killed off what would have been my very first ever shiny, and obviously the shiny that was the first one I ever encountered as a child. It's sad, it sucks, but in a lot of ways I really don't mind at all. For one, the whole mess of it has created this lifelong memory, and I can't help but find it kind of weird and kind of amazing really that our brains can latch on to something that really is such a trivial part of our existence. I can't remember what I had for lunch earlier, but because of how special Pokemon Gold and Silver were to me as a child, here I am more than 20 years later, and I still and always will remember that Graveler. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.